Alright, hi everyone, hope you're well. I'm a bit better, but it's still complicated at the moment, so for health reasons, like I said, I had not only that, but I had to slow down a bit the channel. So I'm doing now rather 2 episodes per month, so something like every 2 weeks if I can. The regular style of videos I do, which is rather long and I know not for everyone, I will try to alternate with shorter reviews. I will experiment at some point. We see how it goes in a few months, if this rhythm of videos suits you or what you think of it. I will ask you after that period. We're gonna go today in Scotland, quite north in the Hebridean region, reviewing this Isle of Raasay R-01.1. We'll get closer to that later on. But we're gonna also do maybe irrelevant by some aspects, but style-wise I thought it was interesting. It's way older, I know, but an independent Ledaig that I thought there's some things going on between those two whiskey styles. And also I will include a quick overview and discussion matter, let's say, about new distilleries and their cask policy, because for this whiskey this is very important and maybe more questioning than for other new distilleries. I have on my table 6 new distilleries other than this, the Raasay. 6 new distilleries bottles of my collection. 2 are English, 4 are Scottish. So I thought, of course there's way more than that in the market, but it's all I could buy last year to have on my collection a little wink, a little aspect of the new production of those new distilleries. So I hope you will find it interesting. Stay tuned for the presentation of the distillery. So Isle of Raasay is in the Inner Hebrides, so it's quite north and it's very close to the Isle of Skye, in fact. So this is the Isle of Skye. So you have the Talisker distillery here, and there in this tiny island going there up, there is the Raasay island. So oops, just a sec. I know it's tiny there, but for this, as usual, I used the malt whiskey yearbook, but also this fantastic little flyer or brochure that was given to me by Dugas, which is a French importer. Not that I asked for it, but when you were visiting last year's Salon Dugas, it's a big show, less big than the Whisky Life Paris, but it's the second most important show in Paris. And they were having that on the stand, as well as 3 expressions I tried. They also have a gin, mind you. Yeah, Nasia means the 6th, you have that on the packaging as well. So Hebridean Single-Malt Scotch Whisky. So I'm going to talk to you about the cask in a minute, but first it's a distillery which project has been going on since around 2013 or 14, if I understand well. So it's just a second. Yeah, so I do no editing, but I have to pause sometimes because the place here is very tiny with everything around. So I have to bring things, and so that's why, I'm sorry. So yeah, basically I was going to tell you that it's the first legal distillery of this island, so this was an exciting project, I guess, also for the inhabitants, which are, you won't believe it, 161 only on this tiny island, and it's written on the packaging. So this is only separated from the Isle of Skye by a short 25-minute ferry journey, as they say on the website. I was also helped because I had planned this before, but before being aware of an episode live about Isle of Raasay at Roy Aquavite channel, but I did complete, in fact, just the tiny things with this this live show. But yeah, basically the distillery was founded officially, let's say, or finalized and starting production by R&B Distillers. R&B is Bildoby and no, it means Raasay and Borders Company, which was founded in 2014. R&B Distillers are Bildoby, an investor, and Alistair Day. They also own another distillery, I hope I will not butcher this, which is called Macrehanish Distillery on Campbelltown. As I understand, initially it was planned to be, I might mistake, because R&B to be built in the Borders, but apparently not. The Macrehanish Distillery should be opened in 2025, Alistair said on Aquavite show. They're also, like I said, making a gin, and they mature the whiskey, the distilled, mature and bottle it on site. This is Scottish barley. They have 25 people. Most of them are located in Ireland, but not all, if I understand well. So basically these are the facts I can tell you, but also I have to tell you this, they have a 1.1 ton mash tun. They have 6 stainless steel washbacks with some cooling jackets, which also are on the stills. And if you watch I might put a link if I don't forget, to Roy's lives, because Alistair did give us a lot of details. The fermentation times, they are varied. They combine different washes, so they're doing some for 67 hours, so it's considered as a short fermentation time, and 118 hours for the long one. So there's a wash still of 5,000 liters and a spirit still of 360,000. So you can see partly here with the stunning view they have. What else? Production was last year 180,000 liters, but it's supposed to go up to 220,000 liters. So what else? I don't have the inaugural release. The inaugural release, which has a Chinese version and a Scottish version, was a 3-year-old American oak and red wine Bordeaux finish only. So 2 out of the 3 usual, 6 in fact, if you think unpeated and peated, but I will come to that. And bottled at 52%, which is not the one we're gonna see here and taste here. What else can I say? I think this could help. So you can see there, what can I show you quickly? Landscapes, it's a bit tiny. So they don't state which variety of use so why explain all that and not mention in the French brochure so Scottish barley, but they don't tell which one. Okay, they use the water from the rain on the Dun Canna, the highest summit of the island. The water is going through volcanic rocks and filtered by their own sorry. Yeah, so I was right, it was well. and sandstone. Sandstone. It's going through the sandstone, right? So quite a mineral water. That's what I was meaning. Here you have a short view of one of the warehouses, and there we will have the recipe, but the cask recipe. So yeah, maybe I should get rid of this. Just complicated. We're gonna go to the bottle in a second, but you can see here, I think it's the R02, so it's a second release. It's darker because it has more sherry in it. Quickly, some nice views. It's also, yeah, forgot to mention, it was built on Borrowdale House, which is an old Victorian house. So they have the distillery and the hotel in the same, almost the same place. So you can stay there. I think they have 6 rooms, if I'm not mistaken. And then we're gonna go to the complicated stuff, which is their cask recipe, which is also why I did add other distilleries on the table, and I will explain you that. So basically they use 3 cask types multiplied by 2. I prefer speak about 3 instead of 6, because in fact it's the same cask, except it's the peated malt in there instead of unpeated. So basically is 3 cask, wood cask type, plus multiplied by 2, because some of the casks are unpeated, some are peated. They use Chinkapin Oak. Chinkapin Oak, you can see it there. The French brochure is very well made, I have to say. Congrats, except for a few details, okay. So it's Quercus Muehlenbergii, if you take the Latin. So it's American oak. It's white oak. So it's from center and east of Northern America. Yeah, they explain after what I'm gonna tell you. So the cask capacity is 190 liters. Those casks are heavily toasted and heavily charred. This has its importance in the final result. Now then they have also, so yeah, they say is supposed to give notes of butter, caramel, ginger, heather, honey, dark fruits, groseille I forgot, yeah, malted bread and smoke. Groseille something like, it's not black currant, just a second. Okay, so groseille, it's red currant. It's the thing to have the brochure in French, and it's another to as much as I prepare. Okay, so then they have a red wine from Bordeaux, barriques. They don't say it's west of southwest of France, but they don't state from which wineries. For this one, there's 2 different oak species. Quercus Robur, which was you hear all of the time because of sherry cask matures in there. But there's also some Quercus Patraea, which I didn't know. The cask type capacity is 225 liters. But in the chat, yeah, I have to say that some Bordeaux red wine casks are smaller. You can have, like in the distillery I worked for, Nc'Nean in North France, you can have 90 to 100 liters cask. You can have even smaller, but it's more specific purposes. But yeah, so they're not always 225, but for this distillery it's 225. For this they say it should bring to the profile salted spices and cinnamon, some cherries, black raisins, sandalwood, some salt, and the smoky when it's smoky peated malt. Then they have a third variety of cask, which is Quercus Alba, which you know very well because a lot of Scottish whiskies, ex-bourbon are matured in there. 190 liters specifically for this. And those come from Woodford Reserve in Kentucky, and this is the third cask type, which is rye, so seigle in French. So this one uses rye, and the mash bill contains 53% of rye. So there's also other cereals that are used to do this Woodford Reserve, and when it's empty, one can, and I tried the rye, so the Woodford Reserve rye, so one can think that the influence is not 100% rye cask, but rather 53, so you will still have some notes of corn and maybe barley, etc., but unlikely to be a heavily rye cask. That's what I meant. So this one is toasted and recharred, but we don't know at what extent. Yeah, so basically you know now almost everything, except that for let's say, they don't state it, but I think it might be half of the casks are also filled with peated malt. So the initial ppm of this malt, I was told, was from 48 to 52 parts per millions of phenols. But I was also told on the show that I was a bit surprised that the final rate was measured at around 6 to 8 ppm. In my experience, we're gonna see with the tasting, I think it's rather around 20 on the sensation. I know it's not a fact, it's an impression, a guess. A guess, let's say not a guess in that case, but rather an impression of what it feels like, right? This is, before I stop this, this is bottled at 46.4, but it is filled, as often, filling strength of the cask is 63.5. Okay, now you might want to see the bottle, right? Would be better to see it. So this is a gorgeous glass bottles, and I have to say it did also influence my purchase, which is good in a way and bad in a way. This is very, this has some transparency over there, because you can see the, it's better like that. Oh, it's on the other side. So they disclose, if it accepts to focus, the 6 different cask type. They also speak about the soils, natural color and non-chill filtered. It is said lightly peated. Can see all the trilobites, the fossils, they have used that to build a beautiful glass bottle. All right, so there you have it. If I can do something, only lets you see this and not something else. Right, it's quite heavy, so I gotta be very cautious. Right, now, so this one is basically 3 years old, was bottled in 2022, distillated in 2018-2019, if I understand well. So from, I think 3 years and 3 months, or a bit more. This I bought online here from not a local, but a shop in France for 52 euros. This you can find around 55, something like that in France. Probably something like 45 pounds, I'm not sure. Dollars, I don't know, because quite changing over time. Don't have a number of bottles for this. I thought I had it, but I couldn't find it. There you go. So this I tried 4 times, and I'm gonna put my score under reservations. Before I start the tasting, I have to warn you that for this specific bottle, I had a slight issue, which is something that could occur if you go to whiskey shows. Is you're gonna try some whiskies amongst others, and whether you're gonna try it at the beginning of the show or in the middle of the end is very important. This was towards the middle of the show, let's say, of the day. In the beginning, very beginning of the show, your palate is fresher, and you can, and this is where you should try, and that's why I let it for later on, but maybe I was wrong. You should focus on the beginning of shows to low ABV whiskies and unpeated and lightly sherried ones, and specifically blended whiskies, blended malt, and then go and older whiskies, and then go to higher ABVs and heavier spirits, etc. So this says lightly peated, but doesn't really come across like that on the palate. And this is not only a question of peat. I will get to that. So yeah, beware. And for some specific things, I remember when I had 2 days of the show going. The second day, when I tried a bottle that was interesting but frustrating, not bad placed in the tasting, I went the next day, and it was the first stand I went to have a fresh idea. And but for this, I tried this one. I tried also the let me check, not to be mistaken. I also tried the R-02, and I tried also what was that? A special release at 52, which had some PX Pedro Jimenez in there, which this one doesn't. Yeah, for the R-02, they speak of 55,000 bottles. For this one, I didn't have the numbers, but might be something like that. Right. Now that I presented this, let's go to the tasting. So, when you know the recipe, and it's written here and on the box as well, you can see the box rather well made as well. The tasting notes also. You are influenced by what you read. So there it says lightly peated, aromatic smoke, fruit, cherry, apricot, black currant, savory spice, black pepper, cinnamon, sweet spice, crystallized ginger, sandalwood, vanilla, butterscotch, a hint of saltiness. Will I find this myself, these notes? Let's see. So, texture wise, it doesn't stick much on the glass, which is a big surprise because it's unchill filtered, but not such a big surprise, to be honest, because it is young. So even if you have 46.4, it is young, so it doesn't stick much to the glass. Its color, as always, it's quite difficult to say with the camera. So it's a gold, but it's a bit pale gold, let's say. On the nose now, and I will have my notes here, but so first off, you have something a bit off-putting if you're not used to whiskies that are not sanitized, which means you have something with a lot of character, and it's, Alistair said it, it's what he wanted for this whiskey. There's something buttery and a bit farmy and not heavily peated, but quite distinguishable, quite noticeable peat on the nose, and more peat than smoke. Then it gets a bit more gentle, and you have the dark fruit, maybe some dark chocolate as well. Have some discrete floral notes. And now you're beginning to have some candied apricots in there. Not sure I wrote a lot of things there, so get back to it maybe later on. Reverse. Yes, sandalwood, I'm not sure. There's maybe some heady flowers coming on now. Not sure about the heather. And yeah, there's something that's a bit wild and untamed that reminds me of Ledaig in the Ledaigs, and some in particular. That is why I put a Ledaig on the table as a comparison. Now let's see how this delivers now on the palate with such a complicated cask recipe, which will be my point after that. Slangeva. Okay. Interestingly, it changes almost every tasting, so it's getting tricky to rate. Honestly, I'm going to change it again. This is very weird. This is very weird, because there's something on some of the tastings that feel disjointed balance-wise, because you can feel a bit of red wine influence, but not winey. So those red fruit mainly. You can feel some kind of oak that seems maybe different, providing for me a bit of a, not really walnut, but something between walnut and chestnut for me, which seem to be the markers of the Chinkapin Oak, but I'm not sure about it. There's something green as well. There's something not really farmy, but buttery farmy. That's why I put Ledaig on the table, which is the common thing, but we will see when we will compare the two. So if you take this and the slight rye influence, which is not as big as I thought, this makes something funky. So there was Campbelltown funk, now we have Raasay funk. And this funkiness doesn't go much to Isle or a bit at Port Charlotte. I could have put on the table a Port Charlotte, that's right. But Port Charlotte is heavier peat-wise. And that explains also why I didn't spoke about Talisker, because Talisker comes across way more mineral and maritime than this. This is just in front of the sea, but doesn't really convey for me. I don't feel the salt really. I have the caramel. But yeah, I'm gonna change. Yeah, okay, let's see how it goes on the with a bit of water, and then we'll see how we're gonna change, if we have to change the rating, right? So just a few drops, mineral water as always, not with too much character, not to modify the distillate too much. gets harmonized in the nose, I have to say. Also, it stood there for a quarter. Yeah, there's still this green, a bit disturbing, because you overthink a bit what you're tasting. It's the contrary to some of the bottles on the table, but we'll speak about that. It works in a way, and in a way it feels a bit disjointed for me. But it did improve after the opening. There's now something interesting regarding the melting of slightly fruity dark fruits, but very discreet. Tiny apricot, tiny citrus fruit, not really. Varied candied fruit. Crystallized ginger, yeah, maybe. And this slight green element that now might feel a bit maritime. But the peat is intricated in there. Peat comes across more discreet with a few drops. Stay tuned. Okay, so I added a bit of whiskey in the glass to help it have a fair comparison with the Ledaig, which is 46%, while this one is 46.4%. But before we go into that, I would like say a word about new distilleries, cask recipes, at least the ones I have on my collection, and also to speak about the question. I'm gonna question, like I did question, sorry, no puns intended, regarding two persons in particular that might be not pleased to hear that, but it's not against them, it's against a rigidity of a word which is called integrity, which I did question regarding independent reviewing, like I called it. I prefer independent rather than integrity regarding review, because it's less hypocritical and it's more realistic for me. I did a whole video about the topic of independent reviews, so 45 minutes or so, so you have the you can search it through the independent review, something like that. But for the integrity bottling, I also question this here and now, because what is an integrity bottling? Is it something that's just 46% ABV, unchill filtered, uncolored, and with an age statement, so the 4 pillars that some say? Or is it something that is faithful to the distillery house style through the new make tasting? I mean, if you taste a new make, if you let it mature into the correct casks, correct, we're gonna see this very subjective. Integrity and correct way of doing whiskey, it's very subjective, in my opinion, because the downside, like I said somewhere else before, the downside of wanting, of asking for integrity bottling, for instance about the color, is that you will accept that the whiskey industry, even the craft, and the evidence is on the table, even the craft, boutique, tiny, artisanal, whatever you call it, distilleries, many are gonna search for that. I'm sorry, and I'm not super satisfied about that. They're gonna search for a darker color than just pale light yellow or straw or muscadet-like color for their new single malt, because it's only 3 or 4 years old. How are they gonna manage that? Wood technology simple and traditional with a lot of sherry cask, or wood technology with virgin oak, heavily charring, heavily toasting, using wine casks, blah 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 blah. You see what I'm going, and I think this is important and not often mentioned. The no age statement is not everything. Of course, I like to have an age statement. I like to have an older whiskey than 3 years old. But no age statement question, I already talked about that a lot in one of my very early videos, in which I think I covered almost everything on the spectrum. Historical no age statement, modern style, modern age statement, kind of blenders no age statement, etc., etc. I'm not going to go back to this now, but cask policy wise, there's some things I want to see now, and for me the solution, to put a long story short, is to ask the distilleries, suggest, who am I to ask, to suggest, and to, I mean, they don't care about me, but my idea is to ask a distillery to have a traditional or natural, we're going to see what it might mean, cask matured release, something that could show the distillate, really make the distillate shine. For instance, for me, I'm sorry, but it's always the same so far. It's refill and a bit of first fill bourbon and cask, American oak, and it's a bit of American or European, whatever, sherry cask, but on refill probably more, but not much more than that, because you have to be able to compare with other distilleries, right, who are there for a long time. And no virgin oak, please. I can't stand all these releases with virgin oak all the time. So especially 3 or 4 brands, which I will not buy unless I try and really I'm convinced they did use it well. And then have a second core range as well release, but experimental. Alistair explained in the live show that for him the experiment was in a way in the current releases, and at some point maybe they're gonna go to a full bourbon, etc. But this is not their will. They want to have something distinctive and with a lot of character, and it has. So it's a success in a way, but is it something that will please to everyone? No. Do all the other distilleries that are on the table new products? It's no, but some, yes, they can please to wider audience than this. So it's not a beginner's whiskey for me, in my opinion. Now, I like it, doesn't say I don't like it. I have reservations on it. Right, so if I see a bit what I have here, starting by the English distilleries, starting by Cotswolds, the signature recipe as they called it at some point. What do we have here? We have 70% STR, ex-red wine, and 30% bourbon, first fill. This, I have to say, works phenomenally well for me. I was a bit skeptic, but really works well. Of course, it's marked by the STR, so it's like a Christmas whiskey all year long. But I rated this 88 out of 100. It's super pleasant to drink. Now, to this Filey Bay from the Spirit of Yorkshire Distillery, still in England, and that's cool because they almost all have the same ABV. This is fantastic because it comes across a really natural, traditional. And what I like about this English distillery and this expression in particular, which I rated, where it is, 89 out of 100, it comes across very clean and pure. The distillate comes across very malty, very balanced, a bit of floral, etc. I will review it later on. I'm trying to get other bottles, maybe 2 other expressions, because it's not cheap. I tried 7 once. This is great. This is really the natural release I was evoking a few minutes ago. So I would like all the distilleries to do something like that, or something like the two next ones. The winner of the new distilleries for me with a 92 out of 100 for this expression. I don't know about the new AD with no numbers from 2021. This one has a complicated cask recipe, but less complicated than Isle of Raasay. Basically 65% bourbon cask and 35 ex-sherry, of different kind of sherry, American, US, Oloroso, PX, Hogshead, etc. I mean, but the blender's work here is fantastic, phenomenal, and the distillate comes across as local, maritime, balanced, etc. Very elegant as well. The Filey Bay is also quite elegant. Now, if we move now to something that's also very natural, I will have to quote the Kingsbarns Dream to Dram, which has a 89.5 out of 100 note, 90% first fill bourbon, 10% STR ex-red wine, as most often. What else is left on the table? Two whiskies that are resembling a bit, but there's no ex-Rye. The Lindores Abbey Distillery, the 1494 I recently reviewed. This one gets at 87.5 out of 100 with a mix but undisclosed percentages of bourbon, sherry and STR wine barrique as well. Now there's another one that comes closer in the style, but I feel for me it's more balanced, than the Raasay. It's the Nc'Nean Organic. Nc'Nean Organic this time has 35% American oak whiskey and 65% STR ex-red wine. So you see many, well, it's a Jim Swan influence, like I said in a French episode version of this. In a way, it's a Jim Swan influence. Well, at some point I was talking about the Parkerizations, but I might speak more about Swanization now. So the good thing is that I managed to make you feel that the distillate is older than it is through the charring, the wine, etc., the STR. But at the same time it removes a bit of the distillate, and you don't know really at some point where it looks like, tastes like. So I'm a bit concerned about this. Many of the releases on the table are scoring quite well with that treatment. So, but I've tried others that don't. But this works. But for me, it's a bit tricky. Now it has the lowest score of all these 7 distilleries with 85 out of 100. A bit increased today compared to the 83. That it had. Now, that said, with my own scoring system available on my website that you can quickly see, at 81 on 4th category, between 81 and 86.5, I call it from decent to quality whiskey worth buying, good for beginners. For this one I will withdraw the last part of the sentence. Not necessarily good for beginners, because some acquired taste of very distinctive peated and maritime and green style that I might not recommend for beginners. Sorry. So the subtitle of the category is "This one has enough qualities to be tasted with a good balance and pleasant taste in the good path." Again, slight reservation. It's a good whiskey, don't get me wrong, but might be a bit challenging for beginners. Now, what I will compare it to, initially you could say compare it, Greg, to a Ledaig 10 years old, but I don't have it. I did taste it, but it's different. I recently opened my last bottle of very old style. I think it's early 20,000. 7 years old official Ledaig at 43%. Beautiful, very subtle, but quite different from what it is now. I shall review it at some point. I didn't show you the fantastic Ledaig I have from Elixir Distillers Single Malt of Scotland, which can't be compared with this because it's a cask strength, and I've reviewed it already. It's a masterpiece. But I thought it could be interesting to compare it with this, even if this 10 years more, I know. So it's not a comparison between a bottle and another, but more about the style of Ledaig and the style of Raasay. So this is 13 years old, 1998 vintage, and it's Wilson and Morgan. Everything is written there, except I don't know if it's chill filtered and colored. Probably it is not, but I can be sure. This was available through La Maison du Whisky in France, which is written here, but that's basically no back label, so no details. And on the box it's not better, it's more generalities about what this company does. Right, the whiskey is a bit darker. It's normal because it's older, and the leg sticks more because it's older, and there's a good chance it's haven't put some ice or chilled water to verify, but there's a good chance when I see the legs that it's non-chill filtered. So I will just retry a bit of the Raasay before. Just a reminder. Yeah, it's a good whiskey. Just maybe the peat hides a bit of the character, I don't know. Still gonna dig into it. Okay, now let's go to this. This has changed. When I opened it, it was very wild, a bit animal, farmy. It has been tamed now after a few sips. It's way wiser now than it was before, maybe less relevant. But I think there's something between sherried Ledaig and this Raasay. Let's go on about it. Oh, beautiful. There's something more ashy, more floral in there than on the Raasay. There's no rye oak, and the red wine that could bring the cinnamon and all that doesn't bring it there. There's still some spices. Black pepper in the Raasay, I forgot to mention. It's tiny influence. You can have it here too. There's more dark chocolate here, in my opinion, and more sexy refill sherry, peated, that always work when it's well done for me. There's something also, yeah, the caramel is in common as well. And yeah, something of the style as well. I'm gonna open the two to finish the review. Did I say it was a long review? Yes. Did I regret it? No, it's my style, so just even if I have no viewers, I have to accept that. Okay, this one with water. Yeah, more herbal as well, more green. It's more grassy, wild herbs. Then this one will be more, I think, oh, the oak. Yeah, the Chinkapin Oak, or whatever it is, very particular kind of oak. I feel it now, really clearly, and it's the biggest difference with this. This reminds me a bit, I mean the Raasay reminds me a bit of the, you're gonna be surprised, the Methods and Madness, so experimental range of Middleton chestnut finish, single malt. There's something between those two in common. Now, I don't want to make you understand that the oak is loud. It's not loud, it's particular, specific. So if Alistair and the other guy, I forgot the name, wanted to have something singular, they have it. Now, is this singularity is going to be in the service to the distillate and to our pleasure in the future? I don't know. Maybe they should, I don't know, who am I to, maybe they should experiment other recipes, different proportions, I don't know. I think it's worth following what they do and see what they can bring on the table, but I would like to see more natural rather than integrity bottlings to see really what's going on in the distillate. Right, I hope it was clear, it was interesting. See you soon, maybe with a shorter review, also with part 2 of whiskey distillery making gins, and hope you a nice weekend or end of weekend. Bye bye.